Welcome to LSC. It's Sportstime. I'm your host, Bob Hintz. Today I have with me Conky Sorrell, is a longtime sports figure in the city of Hampton. Welcome, Conk.
Thank you, Bob. Good to be here.
Well, you know, I played a little golf with you every now and then, but this is the first time I've had a chance to sit down and really talk about you growing up. But you grew up in Hampton, but it wasn't just Hampton.
That's right. It was Elizabeth City County, Beavis, and the little town of Hampton in the middle of it. And it was kind of countrified back right. Then. Access to get around, particularly for a kid, was very limited. And so most of my early baseball was centered when my dad went to ball games or my brother went to ball games.
Don't want to interrupt you, but we were talking before about you going to school. And we're talking 2 miles, and your mama walked you the first day, and from then on?
From then on, I was on my own. That's right.
And you just don't see that today, but everybody knew you, and you knew a lot of the people along the route.
And that worked against me sometime by knowing it too.
So you got trouble when they got back to mom and dad, did it?
Absolutely, yeah.
So when growing up, you didn't have the rec league and all that
right.
thing. So you did have some organization, but it was kind of ripshod. But
for smaller kids, there wasn't much. But my brother, being 6 years older than me, but by the time he was playing, I got to go to his games and be the bat boy and be around the big boys.
Well, now how did you get to the games?
Well, usually with him, and occasionally they'd play a game, say like over at 28th and Wickham and Newport News, and he'd ride his bicycle, put me on the crossbar. Can you imagine riding on a crossbar
You're
of a
talking
bike?
about 6, 7 miles.
Oh, yeah. And ride to the ball game and then the ride back too.
Well, also while you were a bat boy, you caught a couple bats.
Oh yeah, a couple of them. That's part of this nose problem I got now. Got a broken nose and a couple of black eyes, and that took care of my baseball for that summer.
Right. But now growing up, and then you went to George Wythe Junior High School. And some of your, and I'll be amiss if I don't mention some of your teammates, Hardy Cash, Stanley Bakuvarakis, and a couple that I know.
Oh yeah, they were there. We played a lot of things together, and of course, Stanley and Hardy were each a half a year ahead of me in school then. So
half a year?
Half a year, oh yeah. You had half a years back then. They started in September, and I didn't get to start till 1st February, on account of birthdays.
Right.
But most of it wasn't very organized. Most of the ball as a kid was played right in the neighborhoods.
Right.
I could tell a story about it was a chicken farm right down the road from me. And I had a big place there, 8 or 10 acres, and had these chicken houses. And we'd go out there and play in his field, which he didn't grow anything in there, but he'd run us off all the time. Well, every time he'd run us off, we'd pull some kind of tricks on him. So finally, one day we were out there playing, and he came out there, we started running. He said, "Come here, I want to talk to y'all." He said, "Seems like y'all boys want to play ball out here all the time anyhow." He said, "If y'all go cut some poles and put them up for a backstop, I'll furnish the chicken wire and put your backstop up out there, and you can play anytime you want."
Wow.
And so we did.
So it's like getting your own field of dreams.
He didn't want no more tricks pulled on him. I won't go into some of the things that we did to him, but
just being kids.
He figured he couldn't beat us.
Right. Now, they didn't have baseball in Hampton High School when you were there, but the war was going on, and the Elks got involved because they thought Hampton was going to have baseball.
Right. The Hampton Elks, some of the old former crabbers that belonged down there to the Elks, figured that the war was kind of winding down, and of course, you know the Hampton football tradition, but they also wanted one in baseball, and maybe they could sponsor a boys team and get the jump on these other schools before they resumed baseball. And they got us a team organized, got us uniforms, and
got a good coach too.
Got a real good coach, a former minor league ball player, Chuck Scully, and it was the first real formal coaching that I'd had. he'd work on pick-off plays and cut-off plays and run-down plays and positioning and how to cover bases and how to field ground balls and outfielders, how to come into them throwing. And all the various things, backing up bases, right. And I'd never been exposed to anything. When I'd played in junior high, it was more or less just batting practice and infield practice,
right.
and go out and play somebody a heck of a lot older than you, and most time get your ears kicked back, you know, because there wasn't a lot. In fact, that was the only junior high around that had sports was at George Wythe.
All right. Now, you also did some stuff at the Huntington Park.
Yeah, well, that was a little before the Elks, a couple of years before. Like I said, Hampton didn't have any rec leagues or anything, and I wish I could remember who, but they got a group from Hampton and went into the Newpanoos League over there. Dick Carneal played on that team with me, and Winston Baber, and several of us from Hampton went up there and played. Of course, they had teams from Hilton and Ferguson Park and North End and the East End Blue Devils, and
right.
you know they were pretty organized, but we were kind of ragtag,
right.
And we got up there, and I remember 2 or 3 of us Hampton boys made the All-Star team, and we got to play the league champions 2 out of 3 series in Dodger Park, which was the old park up across from Daily Press.
Right, yeah.
A night game, which I'd never played a night game before.
Well, that had to be a good experience.
That was quite an experience, and to have a uniform. Of course, we just got to keep them for those games.
Yeah.
I had to give them back later, but that was the first uniform, my first night ball game.
How about that?
And I wish I could remember just how I got up to Huntington Park, but I don't ever recall missing a ball game.
Now, so
It got
you
there
either walked or
somewhere.
rode a bike or got a ride with somebody?
We did a lot of hitchhiking back in those days.
Yeah.
Oh, there's one other interesting thing. Somewhere right in that time frame, maybe right after that All-Star thing up there, there was a guy in Hampton. His name was Jerry Bloch, B-L-O-C-H. And he organized a boys team, and they came from all over Hampton. And he drove a pure oil gasoline truck. And you know how the big tank on the gasoline truck is, and it's got those little walkways along each side of the tank. Well,
that was your ride.
He'd pick the boys up, and there'd be kids sitting all along on that walkway. And you can imagine what would happen today if somebody come out on a gasoline truck full of gas, and after practice or after a game down at the VA, down at Soldiers Home, he'd take off down Kickotan Road, and as he would go through, somebody knew where to let him off and stop, and 1 or 2 jump off, and he'd get to LaSalle Avenue, a couple more jump off, and to Hampton Roads Avenue. As he was heading home, the kids got off of that truck. But that was quite an experience playing with him. He's dead now.
All right, then you graduated from Hampton, and you go to the Prentice School, and you get to the Prentice School, and you haven't pitched to this point. You basically were an infielder?
Outfielder, and as a kid, I'd played some first base, but I didn't ever get any taller, so that first baseman that I'd carried around on my belt all those years wasn't no good anymore. So, so I primarily played outfield, but I always thought I had a pretty good curveball in the warm-ups and all. And
so tell me that story about how you became a pitcher.
Well, see, the Prentice School also had done away with baseball during the war. And in 1949, they resumed baseball. And we had a pretty fair baseball team, and we had a tri-county league, semi-pro league going around here. And Seaford up in York County got 4 or 5 of us Prentice boys come up there to play with them.
Okay.
And we had 2 pitchers, 2 games a week.
We had one on Saturday, one on Sunday. There's your 2 pitchers.
That was the 2 pitchers, and occasionally they would play an out-of-league game. And they scheduled this team, which is another little place up in York County called Dandy. And there was a little bit of rivalry between Seaford and Dandy, and they wanted to beat Dandy because Dandy wasn't in the league, but they were beating some of the other teams. Well, they asked me, said, they tell me you can pitch. So I went out there and pitched and shut them down. And so from then on, every time anybody come up, I said, well, Conky can pitch. So when the word got back over to the apprentice school, and Pop Lampkin was over there, Pop said, they tell me you can pitch too, son. You ought to known Pop, you remember that big bellowing voice of his. And so my last 3 years at the apprentice school, I was a pitcher most of the time and an outfielder when I wasn't pitching. And
Right.
That started it off.
Then you graduated and you went to work in the yard.
Right.
And stayed there for forever.
Just about.
Yeah. So, but while you're there, you start playing semi-pro baseball.
Right. Well, like I said, I went up there to Seaford, and Goofy Marshall was managing the team down there in Hampton. And when I played against him up there at Seaford, and I'd made a couple of catches and robbed him of a couple of hits, and he come up to me after the game. He said, I understand you from Hampton. I said, that's right. He said, why don't you come down and play with us? I said, I went down there with the spring with you, and you cut me off of the team. You remember? He said, well, if you come back next year, I won't cut you. So I stayed in with the Hampton Royals for 11 years. 10 years. Had 11 years of semi-pro ball, and 10 of it there was with the Hampton Royals.
Well, I know Herb Wood, who has been refereeing, umpiring baseball forever. He says he hated to be behind the plate with you because he says Conky had a lot of junk, and evidently that curveball you was talking about and different things that being left-handed just. You made it hard on the referee.
They credited me with learning how to change up on a change up. But you see, I kept playing ball on up into my 40s, you know. So by that time, I was the old head, and it wasn't much a zip on it. But by that time, I knew how to get people out, and that's what pitching.
That's the name of the game.
That's what pitching's all about.
Right.
And I would like to say one thing about Goofy Marshall. Goofy was ahead of his time. You know, they got all these pitchers that they bring in to pitch to one batter. Goofy did that back in the early 50s. I'd be in left field. It'd be being on base, a left-hand batter come up. Yeah, Goofy would wave me in. I'd come in there, pitch that one left-handed batter. And
then go back out.
Hit him 3 curveballs, go right back to left field. The other pitcher come right back in the game. I mean, this guy was a good pitcher too. Our main guy, I think that first time he ever did that boy won 17 games for us that year.
Wow!
So he wasn't no slow leak.
No, sir, that was something else.
But so Goofy did that, and another great lesson that Goofy taught me. He said ball players don't know anything about the rules. Only people that know rules are umpires and managers. He said, if you're gonna stick with this game, get your 2 rule books. He said, put one of them in your pocket with you, carry it with you all the time. They used to come up with these little books, they're only about that big, cost about 10 or 15 cents a piece.
Right.
He said, get 2 of them, carry one around your pocket, put that one on the back of the commode. Most people have occasion to go in there, and every time you go in there and sit on the commode, you read a little bit of that rule book. And I got up on the rules pretty daggone good. They've kind of bypassed me now, because there's so many changes and Father Time, but at one time I knew the rules pretty daggone good.
Well, I know that back in, was it 59 or something, you were the Royal Motor Company sponsored.
Yeah, well, they were Clyde Royals that run the old GMC truck dealership there on King Street, which some of your previous interviewers talked about Doug Royals.
Right.
I know that name's familiar too. That was Doug's daddy. And he sponsored the team, furnished us uniforms, and bought us some bats and stuff like that. So he had started that even back in the Goofy Marshall days. Okay. We were the Hampton Royals in, and it continued on to the Hampton Royals.
Okay. Now, when you were in the semi-pros in 56, 57, you guys was that when you come in second?
Well,
who was that?
See, in 56. 1956, the Tri-County League had folded. 1955 was the last year of it. So we played independent ball. We played teams from anywhere we could find a game. And in 56, I think we won 34 and lost 7. So we, and just playing anybody from Norfolk, Suffolk, import wherever.
Right.
And we went to the state semi-pro tournament and got beat in the finals that time, so we came in second in the state. But the next year, we were a little stronger, and we'd got in the old Tidewater League. Mr. Crittenden, Tom Crittenden up there around Deltaville. I don't know if you ever heard of him. And we got in that, and we won that Tidewater League 2 years in a row. And we beefed the team up a little bit, and a couple of those young players, freshmen in college and all, once they get a little more experience,
right.
And we came along a lot better. We had come up with two big left-handed hitters that could just knock a ball a mile. One of them at the University of Maryland player, Jack Beck, and another big boy, which you probably know, Hampton fame, with Joe Stickle. Both
right.
of them could
oh,
pop
Joe,
it.
I know Joe real well.
And then in the meantime, Joey Lawrence comes back from pro ball, and we pick up Joey Lawrence. So we had a spark plug in the infield.
Oh man, did you ever? We could talk about Joey for a long time, but we won't do that. But you played until 68, 69, and then you went into coaching the little kids, and I'm talking the Pony League and the Colt Leagues and all that, and we're pretty successful.
Right, oh yeah. Before I go into that, I would like to say, even though we came in second in the state semi-pro 2 years in a row in 1958, we did win it and went to Wichita to the national tournament, and that was big time stuff out there.
Out in Wichita.
And Mr. Royals put up $10,000 for our trip to go out there.
Wow. Yeah, that's big money back then.
And one other note on that, Rex McKinley, which I'm sure is a familiar name, celebrated his 18th birthday on the way to Wichita with us, and to this day he'll say that trip and him going to the College World Series were two of the highlights of his athletic career.
Right. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about your coaching.
Well, I helped out a little bit with Little League kids by the time my kids and some of my friends' kids were coming along, but I didn't actually take a team. But then when the Pony League time come along and they were getting a little bigger, I decided it was time for me to go ahead and do that. And my pitching appearances were about once a week by that time, and 3 or 4 days to get over the soreness and all, you know. But I took the Pony League team, and we had a couple outstanding teams. We won the league down in Phoebus a couple of years and won the district and went to the regionals. And had some good ball players. You remember
some of your players?
Well, the funny thing about sticking around so long, one of the best hitters locally around here, his name you've heard forever probably, Don Brandt. Right. Don was a tremendous hitter, and Don played some pro ball too. And his son got to play for me in the Pony League down there. And so I coached in the Pony League, and we had pretty good success. And then I went over and coached in the Colt League.
Right. Now that's a little older?
Yeah, they were 15s and 16s.
Right.
And we did pretty good in that too. I won the league out there a couple times, and had some outstanding ball players. Had some Bethel ball players and some kicking in, and a couple from the old Pembroke School, and had some real good athletes and some kids that could run and really do things. But you know, by that time, most of the kids, back then, they could get driver's license at that age.
Right,
I think they've raised the age limit now. It was hard to keep the interest in those kids. So I said, well, I think I'm going to give that up. And I did continue to umpire in Pony League and Colt League until they started paying the umpires. And they wanted to pay me to umpire. I said, no, I'm doing it as a volunteer. And if you're going to pay your umpires, that got me out of the umpiring. And
well, I want to wrap this thing up because you've seen a lot of changes in not only in athletics but in athletes. Just briefly, some of the changes that you've seen.
Well, the accessibility to places to play, the equipment, it boggles my mind to go out there and see them bring a 5-gallon bucket of balls out there, and we'd have 2 or 3 balls for batting practice. And if they went over in the woods, you wait till somebody found one to get back. the availability, the organizations that they have, the volunteers that spend so much of their time devote themselves to this stuff, and a lot of them do it years and years and years of it. I used to think about the miles that I'd put on my car carrying ball players around, and there's people doing that all the time. You know, and it was a shame, but it was just a time at the end of the Depression and in the war years. There wasn't no gas to run kids around the ball games or anything like that. You got there the best way that you could, you know. But the general acceptance, although I think we had a lot of good ball players, I think there are more good ball players today than there were then. They train better. They've got more knowledge. Some of them may not have it quite as much in their heart as they had as we were coming along. When I saw the decline of like semi-pro ball, it was when boats became available, cars became available, so many other things to do. Where before, a cheap afternoon was a Sunday afternoon watching a baseball game, a bag of peanuts, you know.
I want to thank you for tuning in to LSC and Sports Time. I want to thank my special guest, Conky Sorrell. I'm your host, Bob Hintz. Until next time.